Welcome to CWS Christian Writing and Speaking, an elevated missions prep incorporated company. I'm your host, Jackie Wilson. And today's guest wanted to bring a different aspect to the world of counseling, his conservative Christian values. Licensed in Oklahoma and Texas, he is the owner of Truth and Grace Counseling. Also, he is the host of the Faithfully Engaged podcast. Today, we will focus on why it is important now more than ever to share your faith and values in your profession. Let's welcome to the CWS stage, Mr. Johnny Sanders. Welcome, Johnny.
Hello, it's great to be here today.
Yes, absolutely. I am looking forward to this particular interview because I think there are some interesting aspects that a lot of people don't think about. Of course, we talked about some things before we hit record, but just definitely, we know that it's so important more than ever right now that people receive the mental health care that they need. But a lot of people are not getting that care because they're afraid of what the counselors may say, or they may not be on the same footing, so to speak, when it comes to their values. But that is one of the reasons why you have stepped in and started sharing your Christian values with various clients. But before we get into that, what I would like to know is why integrate your faith into your counseling practice?
Yeah, it's such a great question, and it's one that I have wrestled with for some time. So I have been licensed as a counselor since 2015. And if you don't have an awareness, or those listening don't have an awareness of kind of how that licensure process goes, you have to get your education first, and then you're kind of in this supervision limbo for a while where you have to meet with the supervisor for so long. So you're seeing clients, but you're not fully licensed. So I was in that for about a year and a half or so, and then became fully licensed in 2015. And during that time frame, like I was a Christian. I've been saved by God's grace since I was about 6 years old. So my faith has always been important to me. I'm not, I haven't had this massive like conversion change in the recent years. But my goal back in 2015 and just in general was to always be a counselor and always have my Christian values kind of guide my counseling practice. But I never really had a desire to be explicitly Christian, like explicitly a Christian counselor. So more so just being a counselor, seeing people like everyone else. And my clients often wouldn't even know that I was a Christian. While that still has some merit, throughout the years, I've found that increasingly difficult to continue to do so, particularly as our culture it just becomes more and more secular in nature and just extreme in nature. We have some pretty significant cultural concerns going on right now. And in particular, the big one that hit me in counseling is gender affirming care. So if you're not aware of what that term means, essentially it's clients that come in that are expressing wanting to be a gender other than their biological sex. Gender affirming care would say that me as a clinician has to affirm what that gender that they say that they are. So if a man comes in and says that they're a woman, I have to treat them like they are a woman instead of a man. I had wrestled with this fact for a while, but the more that I wrestled with that, one, truth is important as Christians. Jesus says he's the way, the truth, and the life. So truth is integral here. Quite simply, if somebody says that they're a man and when they're really a woman, or vice versa, it's just not true. So as a counselor, how am I supposed to affirm something that is not true? Then from there, not even just the pressure from a client, which honestly I haven't really experienced that much of that from clients, but more so from the profession itself. You were looked down upon in many cases. The big organizations, the American Psychological Association, the American Counseling Association, these big bodies, governing bodies, are heavily against you if you don't have gender affirming care and other issues as well. But that's the big one. And quite simply, I just don't think that it lines up with the Christian worldview. In Genesis, it's very clear. God made them male and female. That design from God, he did not make mistakes when he made a male, when he made a female. And I can't sit there and just be that counselor that's a Christian kind of behind the scenes there. I don't feel like that I could. Feel like I needed to be more upfront with those values, that not just about male and female, but just in general, that here's some of these biblical worldview issues. On my website, on truthandgracecounseling.com, I even have my statement of faith on there. Little side note on that. So I'm a Baptist, and I certainly don't expect all my clients to be Baptist by any means. But on my statement of faith, I got my pastor's permission that I just straight up ripped it from my church's website there. So there's going to be some things on there that are a little bit more biased towards a Baptist belief system. And I have clients that are Presbyterian and different, different denominations. And when I show them that statement of faith, they're like, oh, well, I agree with this. Agree with this. Oh, don't agree with that. That's believer's baptism. I don't agree with that. That's fine. I don't force them to agree with all that. All I say is, here are my values. Take it or leave it, essentially. And by doing that, it unlocks a little bit of my value system, because counselors are typically trained to be a blank slate. That I have no values. I am just this blank mirror, and I'm reflecting things back. And that's just not really possible. We all have values.
I would love to interject
Yeah,
here. One of you said counselors are meant to be a blank slate, but have you found that because you are sharing your value system, that people relate more to you because of that?
100%. That is something that I have gotten out the gate with those that are in my practice, which again are primarily Christian, because I'm pretty explicit with that. But I even have some clients that are not. Oddly enough, I've actually had more clients here recently that have been Muslim, that have been maybe just non-religious, but don't really like some of the piling on with the atheistic type of beliefs and things like that. They might have a general appreciation for Christianity and not have those beliefs. Even those that don't share my beliefs, we come in with a knowledge of, oh, their worldview is not going to be attacked here. They feel more comfortable with me, because I've shown that vulnerability. Here's my values, and they feel way more comfortable coming in, I think, to your point, because of that. And then we just get to business. Then from there, oftentimes values they're discussed, but not as often. We don't have to tiptoe around some things, because we kind of know where we're coming from, and we can just get to business.
And because the reality is, when you're talking about subjects such as trauma, then most likely there you still have to follow a particular system. And that doesn't necessarily have to do with the values itself. It's just, this is how you address these types of issues, and then you implement what you have learned and then show them how to go on living as a result.
Absolutely. You bring up trauma. There's a lot of people that come in, and in fact, one of my emphasis on my own practice is pastor burnout. And I have some other people that have just had often what people call church hurt, and that obviously happens. Pastors, tough job at times. At times they are in an unhealthy church environment, or maybe you're just a Christian in a church and have had a really rough go of things. Often what will happen is, somebody, if you have a counselor that has a very, very secular worldview, or honestly, even just almost a combative worldview towards a Christian worldview, they might even, either on purpose or sometimes not even on purpose, but it just comes out, start to say, almost make you feel like church is the issue, like just broad Christianity
Mm.
is the issue. Somebody that loves the church, loves Christianity, loves God, they don't want healing from church as a whole. They want healing from the trauma that they went through the issue that they went through. And again, that's my goal here, is not to convert anybody, or to impress my values, force my values, but simply to say, I want you to heal from this trauma. I don't want to change your worldview or change your value system. I just want you to heal. And I think that we get a leg up really quickly by just unveiling the curtain a little bit.
Yeah, and one of the things that you do is you do tell people that you are a conservative Christian. And as a result, you're able to invite or really impress upon people and within a certain population who may not necessarily want to get counseling that there is somebody who understands your viewpoint of life, and I'm here and I'm available. Let's just get you help.
Yes, absolutely right. And that's something we were talking about off camera a little bit on bringing the conservative part in there. 100% my Christian faith, it trumps everything. That is way more important. And in fact, in most senses, my more conservative beliefs on different issues, I hold them with scripture in view there. And it's not I 100% I line up conservative on everything. But that I like to talk about like umbrellas as far as my philosophies in life, and that Christian umbrella is over everything. It's not conservative and then Christian. But part of why I bring in the language of conservative is there's just no secret that the psychological profession is overwhelmingly liberal. That there's been some studies, and it's not a 100% set in stone issue, but typically it's somewhere around 90% of clinicians, those in the psychological profession, um, say that they are either liberal, Democrat, whatever it may be. That's a pretty significant number there, whereas in the total population, we're much closer to 50-50 there. Some of the reason for using some of that language is just simply saying, hey, that's half the population. If half the population is turned off by that 90% feeling like their values are going to be attacked, the answer is that they just don't get treatment. They don't get help. They just keep it all inside. And I don't want that. I want them to feel comfortable sharing their issues. And if it's simply just the fact that they think that I'm going to attack their worldview, why not unveil the curtain a little bit? Some people see that as being unethical, or that I'm the big buzzword is conversion therapy, and that typically is viewed with a counselor trying to change somebody's sexual orientation. But I think that goes, people use it even further than that. If you show any of your values, that you're simply just trying to convert them to your worldview. And I find that kind of laughable, because my informed consent to show my clients, hey, this is what you're getting yourself into, these are the values that I have, my informed consent is incredibly open. That's not converting. That's just showing this is where we're coming from. If you want that treatment, great. I've had some people that they're not interested. Great. I would be happy to give you referrals elsewhere. I find that hard to believe that that's conversion. I find that quite the opposite. In fact, I see a lot on the other side of the aisle that are converting to a different worldview, converting Christians or more conservative beliefs to think badly about their parents or whatever it may be. I see that as conversion much more than what I'm doing.
Yeah, so this is not about political lines, and we don't do politics here, but this is not about political lines. This is about opening up the world of counseling to people who need help, and how they come forth, or how they identify, it may be is right along with your view as far as being what you call a conservative Christian. Because you even said you have some Muslim clients, and obviously there are some differences, but because of the values that you hold, they have a respect for you as a result. So this is not about liberal, Democrat, and you can also have conservative Democrats. There's so much that you can
Yep.
get into with that, but this is about opening up the world of mental health to those people who most likely will not receive help because they're not seeing themselves within the counseling field.
100%. One of my favorite things to do, the way that my licensure works, I can only see people if they're residing in a state that I'm licensed in. So sometimes on my website, I'll have people reach out from Pennsylvania. I've had somebody from Canada at some point. They resonate with a blog post or something that I posted, and like, I've been looking for help, but I can't find anybody I'm comfortable with. Can you find me a referral? And I love that. It's one of my favorite things to do. I don't get paid a dime to do that. They're not paying me to give them a referral, but I love the fact that they feel comfortable reaching out to me and I'm able to connect them with somebody that's going to get them help. If people attack me for that, then so be it. I find that way more important and way more ethical that I'm helping connect people to get them help than just kind of acting like I'm that blank slate again. It's just simply not true. God didn't make us as just these pure blank slates that have no morals at all. It's just not true.
Yeah, and we're individuals, and different stories and different situations attract different people, and that's why we need the variety of Christians that we do have.
Mm.
Like I said, the most important thing is that they are receiving the help that they need. You don't want someone sitting at home contemplating suicide, and they're saying no one understands me. When you're saying, "Hey, my hand is reaching out to you. Let's talk about this." So let's segue. Let's talk about what type of experience your client would have in engaging with your counseling service.
It takes a lot of different paths. I have some clients that come in that's just like, I had a rough argument with my wife. I just need somebody to listen to me for a little bit. I have some clients that it's one session. We kind of just listen a little bit, maybe give a little reassurance or try to point them in the right direction of ways that they can communicate a little bit more effectively. And that might be it. I have some other clients that they might have had some pretty significant trauma that have happened in their life, and a lot of that is coming to grips with that trauma, accepting that it happened, particularly if they're really wanting more of that Christian worldview. We might use prayer, use some scripture reading to point to where God is in control, that God has a love and compassion for you, and he can help heal you through this journey. And that might take us some time. That might not be a one session. We just snap our fingers and get through that. But it really depends on what the issue the client brings in and what their level of healing is at. I've had some that have been in counseling their whole lives and they just need a little bit of a tune up. And I've had some that it's deer in the headlights. I've never done this before and I don't know what I'm doing. And in those situations, I might have to give a whole lot more direction, maybe some more education. And something I do for those that are seeking the really explicit Christian counseling, will look into their spiritual discipline. I'm not going to tell them, hey, just pray every day and you won't hurt. But if you say that you're a Christian and you're not going to church, you're not ever praying, you're not ever reading scripture, well, that's an issue. So how can we help develop a better discipline, a better routine in that? It's part of what I love about my job is it's never the exact same thing. It's not a blueprint that I just follow these 3 steps. And like you said earlier, everybody's different. And it's my job to hear their story and try to help guide them in making their story better than what it is currently.
Yeah. So people can come in for the traditional aspects of counseling, but also if they desire, they can have that Christian aspect added in. I love that. And not only are you implementing your faith with your practice as people desire it, you also have this podcast. Tell us a little bit more about that as well.
Yeah. So originally my podcast, so my counseling practice is Truth and Grace Counseling. And I just wanted to have a podcast to kind of advertise that. So it was simply named the Truth and Grace Counseling Podcast. And it was a lot of fun. I really enjoyed it. But the more I did it, I was like, this is kind of its own thing. So I wanted to separate it. And one of the things I did with my counseling practice was making a mission statement. And at the end of that mission statement is to help individuals engage life faithfully. That is really what I want to do with my counseling practice is to help people get into the game, get into life and enjoy life and do it, not to just sit back on the sidelines. And from there, I formed the podcast Faithfully Engaged. And as I mentioned, with my value system definitely being Christian, having more of a kind of conservative values, things of that nature, I wanted to have a podcast that showcased that, but doing it in a little bit of a different way than some of the other content I see out there. I see a lot of this is particularly on more of the conservative side content that just looks at how bad things are. Did you see this? What this politician said? Did you see this store that got looted and all these bad things? I don't think it's a bad thing to be informed. And I always tell my clients that, like, be informed, whatever that means for you. But the issue with so much of that content is it turns people to being angry to being apathetic. And that's what I don't want. I don't want people to just be apathetic and sit back again on the sidelines, talk about how bad things are, and maybe tweet about how bad things are. And then that's it. I want people to be active. I want them to engage in live. So on my podcast, it's mostly an interview podcast where I will talk with people that are doing just that. They're engaging live. They're making some form of a difference. I've had people that are other counselors that are doing good work out there. I've had authors on. I've had pastors on. I've had homeschool moms on. I mean, all sorts of people. And that's what I love about it is I'm hearing stories from people that most of which are just your average type of person, but they're doing things in that day to day, impacting people around them. And I just love showcasing their stories and encouraging that my audience to do something with their life as well.
Yeah, I love it. What's next for you, Johnny?
Great question. I mentioned off camera at the time of this recording, I've got three kiddos, a 4-year-old, almost 4-year-old, a 2-year-old, and now a 2-week-old. So in the near future, it's raising another little boy and dealing with sleepless nights and all of that fun stuff. But I would love for my practice to continue to grow, my podcast to continue to grow, just being more open for what God has in store. And the challenge that I've had, especially with my growing family, is to just be present. That's something I love about the newborn stage is actually looking at pictures of my other kids of when they were at that stage and just seeing that change. Like, oh my goodness, my girl's almost 4. You used to be this size. You used to be this tiny little baby. And just a personal challenge is to be more present with my kids, more present with my clients, present with the podcast, and I don't know what all the future holds there, but to really value and be grateful for God to what my life is like now, and be grateful for the love and compassion that he has in my life, not knowing what the future fully holds, hopefully with my podcast and practice growing. But yeah, just really being grateful that I even have the opportunity to have them in the first place.
Yeah, absolutely. How can people connect with you?
Yeah. So two best ways is to visit. I have two websites. So the counseling page is truthandgracecounseling.com. And then my podcast page is faithfullyengaged.com. I'm not as active on social media with my counseling practice. I do have a Facebook. If you just look up Truth and Grace Counseling, I'm a little bit more active with my podcast. I'm on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. And if you just look up Faithfully Engaged, I'm the only one there. So if you want to look at either of those websites or on my social media handles, then by all means, I would love to connect with anyone.
Yeah. As we wrap up your interview today, I would love to know what golden nugget that you would give to people to take action in their life related to what we talked about today.
I tell this to my clients often is don't look for the big thing. Like having big dreams are great. Like I'm not telling you to not ever look at the big picture, but what happens is you lose yourself. Like maybe your goal is to graduate, to get a PhD or something, but you don't just snap your fingers and get a PhD. There's a lot of small steps along the way.
Yeah.
So look at something that you're already shooting for and break it down to a smaller piece. I have friends that are single right now. So maybe Instead of just saying, I want a wife and kids, can you go on a date? Can you ask a girl
Yeah.
out? Like, look at those small steps and then go do it. Maybe you, for my friends, maybe they don't find their wife on that next date, but you asked a girl out. That's something. Maybe you didn't get that PhD yet, but you signed up for a class. You did something. So make sure that you're doing small challenges, small goals throughout your weeks, throughout your days, because you're going to feel more accomplished and it's going to make you more likely to continue on. If you make that goal too lofty with no small goals in between, you're going to be more apt to just give up because it gets overwhelming too quickly.
Yeah. I love it. Thank you so much for being a part of this interview today. CWS audience, you have heard him. It is so important that we get the help that we need. Maybe you are struggling with something like church hurt. Maybe you're struggling with some other type of trauma. It shouldn't matter where you are in the process. But what does matter is that you're willing to step out and get the help that you need. And what Johnny is offering is saying, hey, I recognize your values. I'm not going to try to change who you are, but I'm sharing my values so that I can help enhance your experience. So if you are struggling right now with anything, and you're saying you can't figure out a way to get out of it, you seem to be in a cycle, reach out. It is so important that you reach out for help. And this is not saying, oh, you're broken, something is wrong with you. It's just saying you want to move ahead with your life. And I love what Johnny said with his golden nuggets. Maybe it's that first small step that you take so that you can move toward the life that you truly want. So, as we end this episode, I want you to really think about what is it that you want in life and how can going to counseling help enhance you move toward that goal. Thank you so much for listening to today's episode. And until next time, beautiful people, God bless.